When most people hear the word spiritual awakening, they imagine tranquility, peaceful meditations, glowing auras, a steady sense of joy. But that's not how it usually begins. In truth, the process often shakes you from the inside out. It can feel chaotic, unpredictable, like your entire inner world is coming undone. Emotional highs and lows arrive without warning. One moment, you feel connected to something greater than yourself. The next, you're lost in confusion, questioning everything you thought you knew. This isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. On the contrary, it's the turbulence that comes before real transformation. A spiritual awakening isn't a smooth path to perfection. It's a dismantling. The old version of you, the one built on past experiences, expectations, and unconscious patterns, starts to fall apart. That collapse can feel terrifying, but it's necessary. What follows is a kind of inner reconstruction. Parts of you that were suppressed start to surface. Emotions you haven't faced in years demand your attention. And the body doesn't stay silent either. It echoes the shifts with fatigue, tension, and unfamiliar sensations. This process is uncomfortable because it's real. It strips away illusions and makes space for truth. That truth might not be convenient, but it's the foundation of something deeper: alignment. Instead of chasing constant bliss, what actually matters is learning to sit with the discomfort, to observe it without judgment, to understand that feeling. Lost is sometimes the first step to being found. You're not broken, you're breaking through. It's easy to think of transformation as something that happens only in the mind or soul, but your body feels it too, and not just in subtle ways. You might wake up one day and barely recognize yourself. Your face looks different. Your posture shifts. People who haven't seen you in a while may stare for a moment, unsure if they're speaking to the same person. It's not your imagination. It's change in motion. These physical shifts are not cosmetic. They're the result of something deeper being rearranged beneath the surface. The body, in its own language, is letting go of what it no longer needs. Emotional residue, years of suppressed tension, unspoken trauma. You're not just shedding old thoughts, your body is releasing energy that has been stuck for ages. That tension in your shoulders, that sudden burst of fatigue, that unexpected glow in your skin, it's all connected, and this isn't happening randomly. Your body is responding to a new internal frequency, one that's more refined, more aligned with who you're becoming. You're not just healing spiritually, your body is calibrating to match that healing. It's a quiet kind of wisdom, the way your physical form adapts to support your evolution. You don't have to understand every sensation. You just have to trust the process, even when the mirror shows someone new. Because the truth is, the person you're becoming has been waiting to emerge for a long time. Now your body is simply catching up. Sometimes the biggest shifts aren't loud. They happen quietly beneath the surface, like emotional weight slipping out of your system, unnoticed at first, until your body begins to change. One day, your clothes fit differently. The scale moves. Even though your routine hasn't, you feel lighter, not just emotionally, but physically. This isn't a coincidence, it's your body following your energy's lead. When long-held emotions begin to clear, grief, anger, fear, they take a toll on the body. Stored tension, chronic fatigue, even weight gain from stress and water retention. These things aren't flaws. They're side effects of carrying what was never meant to be carried for so long. As you begin to process and release these emotional loads, the body responds with its own kind of relief. You may lose weight. You might gain some temporarily, as your system rebalances. Either way, the changes are not random. They're a reflection of your internal healing. The body is intelligent beyond logic. It knows how to protect. It knows how to purge. And when it senses that your energy is becoming clearer, more aligned, it starts to let go of what it no longer needs to hold on to. So instead of resisting the shifts, wondering why your face looks softer, why your skin is brighter, or why you're craving different foods, try listening. These are signs that your physical form is adapting to the real you. Healing isn't just emotional, it's cellular, it's structural. And when your energy becomes lighter, your body follows that lead every time. There's something unmistakable that happens when someone starts waking up from within. You see it in their eyes, not just in their color or brightness, but in the energy they carry. It's as if something ancient stirs behind them. Clarity, depth, presence. Like a fog has lifted, and what's left is pure awareness, finally looking out through the same pair of eyes but with an entirely different view. This transformation isn't something makeup or lighting can create. It's born from within, from the release of pain, the unraveling of illusions, and the return to truth. As emotional baggage dissolves and energetic blockages begin to clear, the gaze softens. But it also strengthens. The eyes become steady, unafraid to be seen, because there's no longer anything to hide. People may notice, even if they can't quite explain it. You look different, they'll say. But what they're really sensing is the presence behind your eyes, more alive, more grounded, more you. It's not just the eyes that change, it's what shines through them. When the soul begins to reclaim space in your body, your eyes stop reflecting who you thought you had to be and start revealing who you really are. They carry silence, peace, and wisdom that no words can fully capture. In the end, you don't need to say much. Your presence speaks for itself, and your eyes, they tell the whole story. One of the most unsettling parts of awakening isn't what changes around you, it's what falls apart within. At some point, the identity you've spent years building begins to crack. The titles, the roles, the masks you wore to fit into the world, they stop making sense. You start to wonder, who was I trying to be, and more importantly, who am I really? This is the collapse of the ego, not your personality, but the structure you created to feel safe, accepted, important. It's not a gentle process. It can feel like free fall. The version of you that once felt solid starts to dissolve, and what's left is silence, space, and uncertainty. You may feel lost, directionless, even disconnected from everything you used to care about. It's like the ground beneath you has vanished, and in a way it has. Because the foundation wasn't real. It was built on other people's expectations, outdated beliefs and fears passed down for generations. But this isn't the end of you, it's the end of who you're not. Ego death clears the stage. And while it may leave you staring into the void, that void is sacred. It's the space where truth begins to rise. The discomfort comes from resistance, the mind trying to hold on to an identity that no longer fits. But if you can allow the unraveling, if you can breathe through the confusion and let the old self fall away, something honest begins to emerge. Not a better version of you, a real one. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to question the ones you've been living by. That's where rebirth begins, not with knowing, but with surrender. Suddenly everything feels louder, though no one's speaking. A room that once felt neutral now overwhelms you. Someone walks in smiling, but your body picks up the sadness hiding behind their eyes before a word is said. This is what happens when your sensitivity expands. It's not weakness, it's not imagination. It's perception waking up. As your awareness grows, you begin to register things that used to slip by unnoticed. The energy of a place, the mood behind a conversation, even the frequency of your own thoughts. Your inner radar sharpens, and it doesn't turn off just because it's inconvenient. It can be a lot, absorbing emotions that aren't yours, feeling drained in crowded places, being moved by something as subtle as a shift in tone. And while it might feel like too much at first, this sensitivity is not a burden, it's a gift. But like any gift, it takes time to understand and manage. The key isn't to numb it or push it away, but to create space within yourself, to stay grounded enough to feel what's yours and release what's not. This requires boundaries, not just with people, but with energies. Your nervous system starts to recalibrate. Your chakras open wider. You begin to notice that objects, conversations, and even silence carry vibrations. Everything is communicating, if you're still enough to listen. With time, this heightened perception becomes a compass. You start trusting your gut, sensing what aligns and what doesn't. You stop needing proof because the energy tells you everything. It's not about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming more aware of yourself, of others, and of the unseen layers that shape every moment. At first, life moved slowly. Goals took time. Change felt like pushing a boulder uphill. But suddenly everything is moving fast, almost too fast to process. This is the momentum of awakening, as your inner world clears old patterns, limiting beliefs, emotional clutter. Your energy becomes more focused, more potent. And the universe responds. What once took years to attract now arrives in weeks, sometimes days. Thoughts feel magnetic. Intentions carry weight. Life stops dragging and starts surging. But acceleration isn't always smooth. When the brakes come off, so does the illusion of control. Blessings arrive, but so do buried fears. That unresolved pain you thought you outran, it resurfaces, not to punish, but to be dealt with. Finally, fully. It's like upgrading from a bicycle to a bullet train. You can travel farther, faster, but the terrain gets more intense, the turns are sharper, the stakes feel higher, and every choice you make sends ripples out at lightning speed. This is why clarity matters. What you focus on multiplies. If you carry chaos, you'll manifest more of it. If you hold peace, it echoes back. This stage isn't for the faint of heart. It demands honesty, flexibility, and a willingness to grow in real time. There's no more hiding in indecision or delay. The energy around you won't allow it. But here's the beauty. You're no longer building from resistance. You're creating from alignment. And once you get used to the speed, you realize it's not overwhelming, it's liberating. You're not just surviving change anymore, you're co-creating it. It doesn't happen all at once, but one day things just start to make sense. Not because anything outside of you changed, but because the fog in your mind quietly lifted. Spiritual clarity isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives. Like sunlight spilling through a window you didn't realize was dirty. And suddenly you can see, really see, what's been there all along. Patterns that once confused you become obvious. People's intentions, once hidden beneath words, are now felt before they speak. The connections between events, choices, and emotions begin to align like puzzle pieces finally falling into place. This isn't about becoming psychic. It's about removing interference, doubt, fear, conditioning, and allowing your natural insight to surface. Intuition stops being a gut feeling you occasionally trust. It becomes your primary guide, and it doesn't just apply to people or relationships. You start to sense the undercurrent of everything, how systems operate, why certain structures feel off, and where truth hides beneath surface-level noise. Your mind doesn't race like it used to. It listens more, feels more, responds instead of reacts. You stop chasing clarity through effort and begin receiving it through stillness. What's most surprising is how familiar this vision feels. Like returning to a language you always knew, but forgot how to speak. It's not new, it's remembered. And with this clarity comes power, not the kind built on control, but the kind grounded in presence. You know what's real. You know what's right. And even when the world gets noisy again, you can return to that inner quiet where everything is clear. At some point, you stop trying to become someone and start allowing yourself to be who you've always been. That's the quiet shift that marks the end of one phase and the beginning of another. After the shedding, the chaos, the clarity, what remains is truth. Not the kind you have to prove, the kind you simply live. You begin to move differently. Choices are no longer made out of fear or habit, but from alignment. You know what feels right and you honor it, even when it's inconvenient, even when it means disappointing others. This isn't about perfection or having all the answers. It's about integrity. It's about listening to your inner compass and trusting where it points, especially when the path isn't popular or predictable. You speak more honestly, love more deeply, and say no more confidently. Not because you've hardened, but because you've softened into what matters. You no longer shapeshift to fit into places you've outgrown. Wisdom isn't loud. It doesn't seek attention. It shows up in the way you pause before reacting, in the way you see through situations without needing to control them, in how you lead your life quietly but powerfully from the inside out. And perhaps the greatest gift of all, you stop seeking validation, not because you no longer care, but because you've learned how to validate yourself. This is what it means to live awake. Not above life, but fully in it, rooted in self-awareness, guided by clarity, anchored in purpose. And when you live that way, the world begins to respond, not just to what you do, but to who you are.